told you.
These videos are not for children. If you're a children, then piss off.
Hey, so I saw a movie trailer the other day. How could Batman possibly fight Superman? I mean, isn't that dumb?
Hey there, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso. And I'm here to talk about my least favorite Batman and Superman movie, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And I assure you, this movie is just as much of a mess as that title is. First off, Batman v Superman, what is this, a court case? No, Batman versus Superman. And then Dawn of Justice, what? It's not a sequel. We don't need a subtitle. I'm getting ahead of myself. I have never before been so disappointed by a movie that I was so eagerly anticipating. This was like Spider-Man 3 all over again for me, except it was on an even bigger scale because these were two of my favorite characters. I have a hard time sitting through this movie more than any other Batman movie ever made. I mean, seriously, I would much sooner watch Batman and Robin than try to watch this again. When I'm done with this video, I don't even want to know that this movie exists anymore. That's it. It's out of my mind for good. Forever. I don't only dislike this movie. I would even go so far as to say that I hate it.
I hated this movie. Hated this movie. Hated it. Hated every simpering, stupid, vacant, audience-insulting moment of it.
I truly despise this movie. And right now, I'm gonna share why with all of you. I want to start off by saying my biggest issue with this and DCEU movies following it, up until relatively recently, is the characterization of these characters. It's quite interesting actually, because I don't place any of the fault on the actors who are portraying these characters. As a matter of fact, I actually think a lot of these actors are perfect for the parts that they play. But they don't play those parts to perfection because they're written and directed to be polar opposites of the part they have. From just a physical standpoint alone, Ben Affleck completely embodies Bruce Wayne. When I see him, I can't help but see the character I grew up watching on Batman the Animated Series. His choice of attire, the way he styles his hair, I mean, all of that, that's Bruce Wayne. In terms of how he talks and for lack of a better word here, the mask that he puts on a daily basis, it's just so perfectly in tune with the character. I truly feel that Ben Affleck understood the assignment. I love Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne. I would even say that in these movies, I kinda like Bruce Wayne significantly more than I like Batman. Ben captures the grittiness and gruffness of the character, but neglects the completely compassionate nature of Batman. The need to do right even when everyone else is doing wrong. Instead of rising to the occasion, he just falls in place with everyone else. In these movies, Batman's kinda just as bad as the criminals he takes down. Look, if you're writing a Batman story in which Batman picks up a gun or intentionally kills a man, then I'm sorry, I don't want to be the gatekeeper here. But if that's the Batman story you're developing, then you have next to no understanding of this character. People's defense for this seems to be that, oh, you don't get it, this is a Batman who's lost his way. But again, the people making this defense I don't think are people who understand Batman. This goes far beyond losing his way. This is a complete betrayal of the Batman character. Batman would not pick up and utilize the same weapon that tragically took the lives of his parents and forever traumatized him. You can say that he's lost his way, but I think you've lost your damn mind.
And using a gun makes you just like them.
You gotta be kidding me.
No guns, no killing.
Where's the fun in that?
He would not take lives after having witnessed firsthand the lives of those he loved taken before him. This just isn't Batman. And yeah, I've heard a couple of people argue that Michael Keaton's Batman blatantly killed people, but it's important to remember that those movies were made during a time where comic book accuracy and trying to be true to the spirit of the source weren't really that much of a thing. Yeah, Batman had a no-kill rule at the time, but the public didn't know Batman on an intimate level at that point in time. If you weren't a comic book reader, your sole concept of Batman was probably this.
You shake a pretty mean cake, Batman.
So yeah, back then you could pretty much do anything because anything was going to be an improvement. But we're now at a point where I think the public's gained an understanding of both Bruce Wayne and Batman. And they know that this isn't the way Batman acts. I understand that these nightmare sequences were all made with the intention of being preludes and setups to future movies down the line, but they took up a significant amount of screen time, and those movies have yet to be made. And there's no confirmation that they'll ever be made at this point in time. They do more to distract from the already convoluted main plot, and they're entirely unnecessary to the movie itself. Sure, these haunting dreams of Supreme Leader Superman add on to Batman's sudden xenophobia, but they shouldn't. Batman is known as the world's greatest detective. He's highly intelligent and he thinks things out. He's not some violent, impulsive asshole with a deep distrust of spacemen. This is so off the mark, or off the mask, whichever works here. My point is that this is not Batman. He's not some superstitious coward. No, he's a good guy. I mean, sure, listen, Batman first encountering Superman, I think naturally he would be precautious. Maybe even a little bit hesitant. But he wouldn't say something like this.
He has the power to wipe out the entire human race, and if we believe there's even a 1% chance that he is our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty.
To make such a declarative, definitive statement, and decide then and there, simply out of fear that Superman needed to be stopped, that's just not the Batman I know. Similarly, I think that Henry Cavill is completely capable of being maybe the perfect Superman, but the writing doesn't allow for it. The citizens of Metropolis treat him like the beacon of hope that we all know him to be, but the script seems intent on showcasing him as an angry, angsty, stern individual. That isn't Superman. Superman is an alien who wears his heart on his sleeve. A completely selfless individual who, even when he's at his all-time worst, tries to approach life with a smile. But this Superman hardly ever smiles, and he's rarely in a good mood. I get that this is a serious movie with some serious situations, but man, Supes just stays pissed, doesn't he? I guess that's not too much of a departure from the character in Man of Steel, but I thought that Man of Steel was an interesting starting point for this universe because I was operating under the impression that the way they portrayed Superman was them showing a Superman who hadn't yet found his way. This was a Superman who wasn't yet the Superman that we know. I thought through these movies with proper development we would see him become the Superman that we all love. Instead, he became that Superman down the line through the insistence of the plot. We can see that he's worshipped as if he was that Superman, but he doesn't ever become that Superman. We do, however, see him save lives later on, but he's worshipped like a god from the get-go. And yes, saving all these people is good and impressive, but this movie doesn't tell us anything about Superman. Whatsoever, there is no development for his character throughout the entire film. And sure, you can make an argument that not every character needs a major development in every single installment of a franchise. And yeah, I understand it could be hard to do that, but even the worst Iron Man movies managed to continue to develop the character as time went on. And this is only his second outing. This is the second time we're seeing Superman. I thought you would give us something, but no. Actually, come to think of it, I think the character might regress from Man of Steel to this movie. In Man of Steel, Superman is so much more personable and likable and charming. And here, he is just forever angry. In the first movie, he comes across as a good guy. But in this one, he just comes off as an angry alien. To the point where I'm almost like, yeah, you know what, maybe Bruce has a point. And also, maybe so does Lex. Is Superman the good guy here? Don't even get me started with Lex Luthor, who is Lex Luthor in name only. I don't know who decided let's turn Superman's greatest foe into Max Landis, but good going. You done goofed.
Oh no. He's a terrible Lex Luthor.
Lex Luthor exudes power. Even when he's not in control of a situation, you still feel like this guy has control beyond anyone's reasonable expectations. But this mousy fuck, I don't know. I shudder to call him Lex Luthor. As a matter of fact, for the rest of this review, let's just call him Alex or Lexi, because he sure as hell ain't Lex. I don't understand how you conflate the powerful Lex Luthor with the next to powerless this guy. I just want to understand why it is that Mark Zuckerberg is taking on Batman and Superman. This is not only not like the character of Lex Luthor, this is like you were trying to create a character who was everything that one wasn't.
Silver bullet to keep in reserve to use against the Kryptonians, so the day does not come, madame, when your children are waving daisies at a reviewing stand. The bittersweet pain among men is having knowledge with no power, because that is paradoxical, and,
You're psychotic.
That is a 3-syllable word for any thought too big for little minds. Next category, circles. That is silly.
A lot of people have compared him to Jim Carrey's Edward Nygma, and there's some valid reason for that, because there is a comparison to be made. The issue is that no one should ever compare Lex Luthor to the Riddler, in any context. If there is a comparison to be made, then mistakes have already been made. Those two are not even remotely alike in any way, shape, or form, other than both being intelligent men who have a fondness for villainy. Why is this Lex Luthor so weird and quirky? Was this part originally going to go to Zooey Deschanel? I don't know, I'm confused. And all these years later, still absolutely none of it makes sense to me. He's smarmy and snarky and prone to random outbursts. I'm sorry, but I should not want to shove Lex Luthor in a locker. Nor should I feel that I'd be able to do it with ease. I do want to applaud Jesse Eisenberg for coming off as a true villain here, because I don't think that this is a bad performance. I think this is a bad interpretation of Lex Luthor. This is not Lex Luthor. And I think that's also why they go out of their way to refer to him as a junior and make it clear that his father was Lex Luthor Sr. I think that this was this movie's get out of jail free card. Oh, this isn't the Lex Luthor you guys know. This is his son. This is baby Lex Luthor. Get f***ed. What a terrible way of handling this character, and what a terrible scapegoat. One thing that really pisses me off about this movie is just how much of a waste it is. And now, on its own merit, I'm sure that a lot of you agree with me from just hearing that, but when you really truly think about it, it's an even bigger disgrace than you might have originally thought. Allow me to count the ways in which this sucks. First and foremost, this movie feels like exactly what it is. A failed attempt at trying to emulate the success that the Marvel Cinematic Universe saw, and doing it with no concept of how they achieved that success. The very first movie in this lineup was a simple Superman story. We got to learn about the character and see him develop. And by the end of his origin, yeah, he still wasn't the classic hero that we all love, but it seemed like there was room for growth.
Yeah, he's getting there.
It seemed like they were going to continue to develop the character and bring him down the right road. I thought future installments in the Man of Steel franchise would fully flesh him out and evolve the character. Instead, the next movie, and all those made after it, just insist that he was already the unstoppable force of good. The world admires him as if he was the hero from the comics, even erecting a statue in his likeness. But this status never truly feels earned or organic. The script just kind of demands that.
Superman is dead.
On top of bad storytelling, everything about this movie feels rushed. Which it really shouldn't, considering that you had 3 years from Man of Steel to get this right. Like I said before, the first movie was a simple origin story. It was concerned with reintroducing us to the character and establishing his backstory. Yeah, sure, there were some Easter eggs here and there that alluded to a bigger universe at hand, but these references and setups were subtle, and they didn't do anything to distract from the narrative that it was creating. This movie, on the other hand, basically shoved its universe down our throats. As opposed to trying to tell a good Batman vs. Superman story, they put in the bare minimum effort in a Batman v Superman story while trying to set up another 7 sequels that may never happen. Batman vs. Superman as a concept was more than big enough on its own.
That's all you have to do!
Have Batman face Superman. That was the movie. That's more than big enough. Make this movie what the title claims it is. Batman vs. Superman. Not Batman vs. Superman for 5 minutes of screen time being orchestrated by little Lexi with Wonder Woman carelessly thrown in, and oh hey, is that the Flash? Never mind, we gotta face Doomsday now. Oh, and Superman's dead. They literally crammed in some of the most iconic DC comic stories into one mess of a script, doing a disservice to each and every one of those stories. Not to mention that nothing happened in a natural progression. They made one movie, and then they tried to make the next movie 4 separate movies. It was a case of too much too soon. And as opposed to allowing the audience to enjoy the journey, they sped right up to the destination. dulling down the impact of everything along the way. There is absolutely no reason why Superman should die in his second movie in. Whoever made that decision should no longer be allowed to make decisions. This robs this iconic moment of its legendary status. When Superman died in the comics, it was after decades and decades of Superman stories. At this point in time, we knew and we loved Superman. So seeing him pass on was like watching someone we know pass on. It was heartbreaking for a lot of readers. The impact of his death was felt on such a large scale that real-life news sources were reporting this as if it was an actual death.
Man of Steel has proven to be as vulnerable as the mere mortals who've looked up to him for more than half a century.
This was news. His impact was felt. His legendary status was already set in stone. But in this timeline of events, we barely got any time to know Superman at all. How do you kill off a character in the movie following his origin? Unless it's a Black Panther situation when you really don't have that much of a choice, there is absolutely no excuse for this. You took what would have been a huge moment had you waited, and turned it into just an ordinary event. On top of that, now that Superman's basically shrugged off death in his second outing, where do you go from there? You already made it clear that this guy is indestructible, and you made it clear this early on. There is now no suspense in anything he does. This movie didn't kill Superman. It killed death. How do you do that? I think also as a nerd, this kind of upsets me because the death of Superman really should have been its own movie. And it has been on a couple of occasions. One of my favorite moments from those comics is seeing all those heroes as pallbearers. All his friends, all his colleagues, all those who knew him. That's a hell of an image, seeing our favorite heroes carrying Superman's casket. That is one hell of an image that lives rent-free in my mind. Can you imagine what it'd be like to bring that to life? Well, now you're gonna have to. And on top of all of what I just said, Batman v Superman shouldn't have been the second movie in this cinematic universe. You made Superman a secondary character in his own story. The inclusion of Batman in this movie makes him the focal point. This movie is now trying to further the Superman storyline while trying to introduce Batman midway through, also suddenly including Wonder Woman and then making mention of Aquaman, the Flash, and Cyborg. Superman was the only hero in Man of Steel. This movie decided you needed the whole Justice League. You went from 1 to 100 real fast. It didn't need to be this way. And I think they made a big mistake by making a Batman vs. Superman movie before giving Batman a solo outing. I just feel like this movie would have meant a little bit more had Batman already been introduced. And I'm not saying give him an origin story, but you know, give him his own thing to do. That scene at the beginning of Batman v Superman where it's a flashback to Man of Steel, could you imagine if we went through a Ben Affleck Batman movie and had no concept that it was tied into the Man of Steel franchise, and then ending that Batman movie with that scene? We would still be talking about that to this day. DC, once again, I'm just gonna put it on out there, I'm available. There are so many larger plot points that get entirely overlooked in favor of doing what? I don't know. The plot holes in this movie aren't just plot holes. They are sinkholes that are engulfing the plot. Little Lexi somehow manages to figure out both Batman and Superman's secret identity off-screen. And it's never really revealed how or why he knows. He just does. You would think that a villain finding out two of the greatest superheroes ever put to comics, true names and faces, would be probably a big moment and a plot point that was focused on heavily. But you would be wrong. They don't say how or why he knows, he just does. Accept it. He does. Learns about it off screen, sets up Batman to face Superman, sure, why not? What do you mean you need more of an explanation than that? He's Lex Luthor! Son! He's deduced two of the most prolific heroes' identities, and that is just glossed over entirely. Paid no real attention to by the movie whatsoever. What a goddamn waste. And here's the thing, here's the kicker. Batman and Superman's whole little rivalry, when you really get into the nitty-gritty of it, it essentially boils down to absolutely nothing. There is no reason for Batman to hate Superman and Superman to hate Batman. It is publicly known that while there was destruction in Metropolis, and I believe maybe a little bit of Gotham City, that Superman was saving lives. The only life that Superman took, and mind you, I'm not standing up for it because I still think the next snap didn't need to happen, the only person he killed was a Kryptonian, Zod. He has never laid his hands on another human being or took the life of a person. But Batman's like, he's a threat. Okay, what makes you think he's a threat? Alien. Don't like him. Bruce is just sitting there at the table like, I just think they should all go back to where they came from. And that's sad, because for me, a Batman versus Superman fight is so much more than just two dudes in tights duking it out. If I wanted to see that, I would tune into AEW, which on most Wednesdays I do. But a Batman versus Superman fight is about two heroes fighting on the same side, fighting for the same cause, but doing it under different methods. And those different methods being enough to tear them apart. Two men being so similar in their identities and their goals, but having those few differences split them apart entirely. In this movie, upon their first meeting, prior to them learning of each other's secret identities, there's a random tension between Clark and Bruce, and there really shouldn't be. There is literally no reason for there to be. But there is. Why?
I don't know!
The color grading here kinda sucks. And mind you, I'm colorblind, so if I'm seeing it, so is everybody else. All I'm trying to say is that an error has been made somewhere. Not to mention, this superhero movie about two of the greatest of all time, the world's finest, if you will, going toe-to-toe, going head-to-head, is unapologetically boring. And I'm not the type of guy who needs action in every scene of a comic book movie. But if you're gonna make your comic book movie 3 hours long, then I don't know, maybe don't save all the action for the last 36 minutes of the movie. Look, I love storytelling. Honestly, I put that way above fight scenes and action, but I also like storytelling that isn't actively putting me to sleep. Not like this movie has much of a story to tell. We're not talking about the philosophical battle of Batman versus Superman. We're talking about two angry dudes just trading blows because some rich kid who probably just got a swirly told them they have to. One thing that isn't talked about nearly enough is how this movie easily disregards several characters that they not only never built on, but a lot of them are barely introduced. Jimmy Olsen, KG Beast, Mercy Graves. All these characters are brought in and then quickly dismissed. Surely there could have been better use for them. Look, I'm not saying any of them should have gotten their own solo projects or spin-offs, but come on, give them something. Or don't. Or don't. Just don't use them. And it's at this point in the video I need to point this out because I know somebody's already made a comment without finishing the video, telling me that the director's cut is so much better. Fee, you gotta watch the Ultimate Edition. It improves all these problems. Some people have used this version of the movie to try to dismantle my disliking for the movie. And look, I'll admit, it does add a lot to the story being told. But I still don't like the story that's being told. Yes, it is definitely, for all intents and purposes, superior to the theatrical cut. But the scenes that were added in help to better serve the story and make the narrative feel more complete. But it doesn't change the fact that the narrative sucks. If you had to choose one, I would say go for the Ultimate Edition. It definitely brings Zack Snyder's vision for this movie into a much more comprehensive light. But more accurately, I'd say just watch the animated Batman vs. Superman movie that was made years prior. Sure, it's a much more simplistic take, pitting the two against each other, but it's a movie made by people who clearly understood Batman and Superman, which is not something I can say for this movie. It may have been made for a younger audience, but in my opinion, it is far superior to this. I'll tell you what really upsets me. It's not only how bad this turned out, but how great it could have been. How great it should have been. We're talking about Batman versus Superman here. If you would have told me in the early 2000s that an Iron Man versus Captain America movie would not only be more successful, but would be a better movie than a Batman versus Superman project, I would have told you to seek help. I think most people would readily admit that it could have been, and should have been, a lot better. And now comes that time of the video.
Martha! Why did you say that name?
The time that you guys were all looking for, the most memed upon part of this movie. Here's the thing though, I don't actually think it's as bad as a lot of people seem to think it is. Batman is clearly somebody who is traumatized and has mommy and daddy issues all these years later in life. It's weird to have them when you're in your 50s, but hey, but I'm not gonna judge because my parents weren't murdered right before my eyes at a very young age, when my brain was still developing. So I've never been in that boat. I've also never had that boatload of money that he had either, but that's a different story. I think what people neglect is that it's not just a goofy moment where he's like, whoa, our moms have the same name? Oh shit, what up, bestie? That's not what this moment is. It is in this moment that Batman is looking upon the alien of Superman and finally seeing him as a human being. His ties to and relationships with other people makes Batman see him as a person. And this is the first time he has in this movie. Is it goofy the way it happens? Yeah, sure, a little bit, but I don't think it's anywhere near as doofy as the internet made it out to be when this first came out. I mean, realistically speaking, Soups could have just said, "You have to save my mother." And it would have had the same exact effect. But it would have had the added benefit of sounding so much more natural, as he's never called his mother by her first name in any of these movies. This was clearly Zack Snyder wanting to feel real smart because he was the first person to make the correlation that DC's two Golden Boys' mothers share a name. Well, good going, Zack, you did it. Pat on the back. I would have respected you more if you didn't call attention to that, but you did, and that's where we're at, so good on ya. Look, I'm not going to act like everything you do is bad, but I'm also not going to act like everything you've done is great. Sometimes it just seems like you're congratulating yourself, when there is yet to be anything celebrated. And when Batman saves Superman's mother, it's, in his own mind, a redemption of sorts for failing to save his own. This isn't all that different from the moment that we get to see Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man rescue MJ in No Way Home. Is it executed as well? No, absolutely not even close. But it's, pretty much the same sentiment. This movie pisses me off so much because it's not about the journey, it's about getting to the destination. And when you just speed to the end, then the trip becomes unenjoyable. If you guys like this video and want to see me tackle more from the DCEU, let me know in the comment section below by saying Batman v Superman. They're not all going to be clever. Most of them won't be. Anyway, with all that being said, I was your least favorite YouTuber, V Infuso, and I thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was V Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.
Take 1, Batman vs. Superman, Part 2.
Please, God, no.